I'm joined now by Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. This seems to me, Congressman Schiff, to be the big one because Mark Meadows was the closest person to Trump and in helping him overturn the election. Your take on this news from ABC?
Well, I think it is very big news. In a way, it's not surprising. People never expected Mark Meadows to be a Steve Bannon, gleefully riding into jail on behalf of Donald Trump. That is not Mark Meadows. He never signed up to go to jail. He was, carrying out Donald Trump's dirty work every day. But self-preservation has kicked in, and it appears that he is cooperating. The challenge with him is he's written a book which was touting all the Trump lies. He's told a lot of the Trump lies himself, so he is not a perfect witness by any means. But nevertheless, having him be able to confirm conversations, having him be able to share firsthand information about what Donald Trump knew and saw, any acknowledgement of his loss of the election privately while Trump was out publicly telling the big lie, all of that is still going to be very useful for prosecutors.
It is. You mentioned the book, and he is now allegedly, at least according to ABC's reporting, admitted that he doesn't even believe the stuff in his book. In terms of, his usefulness to prosecutors, you did mention the book. The fact that he is now saying that he published a book, presumably took an advance in payment from the publisher, and now says and is telling investigators he doesn't even believe what's in the book. How does that taint or impact him as a witness?
It'll certainly impact his credibility. You can imagine if he were called as a witness by Jack Smith to testify about what Trump did and said, he would be impeached with his own words in his book, which is why you're going to need corroboration for what Meadows is saying, other means of proof. Still useful, still important. Prosecutors will make the case, as they often do in organized crime cases, that crooks surround themselves with other crooks. And you're going to have to rely on, imperfect witnesses to tell the story. But, for someone that close to Trump, in all the meetings, to essentially have flipped and be willing to talk is significant. I do think more valuable witnesses are people like Cipollone, the White House counsel, and others that don't have quite as strong a taint as Mark Meadows. But nevertheless, this is an important development. You add to it these other lawyers surrounding Trump, the Sidney Powells, the Jenna Ellises, the Chesbros, and others. And, the walls start closing in on Donald Trump.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, Jenna Ellis now also taking a plea. Let me let you respond to that, because now you do have somebody who was in supposedly this high level team of the strike force, they called themselves. Now, 2 out of the 3 of the members of this supposed strike force, Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis, have pleaded guilty. For Donald Trump, this does seem pretty dire.
It does. These are basically, I think they were referred to by, the White House counsel lawyers as the clown car lawyers. The team, there was Team Normal and then there was Team Clown Car. These were members of the clown car along with Giuliani. I think both Donald Trump needs to be worried about them providing state's evidence. But also Rudy Giuliani needs to be concerned. These were a couple of his right-hand people. Yeah. And, it's all cumulative. You can use them to corroborate documentary evidence. You can use them to set the time and place of other meetings. They'll provide insights you can't get from others. So it's just adding the body of evidence. And for those who wondered, why is the Fulton County DA indicting 19 people in the same indictment? You can't possibly try a case with 19 people. Well, you can't. She doesn't have to anymore. Every day, every week, more people are pleading guilty, and they're going to be taken out of the trial and be added to the stable of witnesses.
Absolutely. Let me read a little bit of this reporting, ABC, on whether Trump acknowledged that he lost. This is important to his defense. While speaking with investigators, Meadows was specifically asked if Trump ever acknowledged him that he lost the election. Meadows told investigators he never heard Trump say that, according to sources. What do you make of that?
Well, I think, in that reporting as well, there is an acknowledgement by Trump when the Supreme Court rules against him. Well, that's it. I'm done. But he wasn't done. And he went on to challenge the election in other ways. And this is what you get with Mark Meadows. You're going to get kind of a little bit on this side, a little bit on that side. That is, sort of how he conducted affairs in the White House, telling each different group that appeared what they wanted to hear. And I think we're seeing more of this in the reporting about his testimony before the grand jury. But it's very characteristic of who he is. And that is, quite chameleon-like, which does make him challenging as a witness, not without value, potentially with significant value, but certainly not problem-free either.
As you just mentioned, per the ABC, when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on December 11, 2020, denying the final court challenge, Trump told Meadows something to the effect of, that's it, that's the end. There's also this reporting from ABC that Meadows has allegedly told investigators that Trump seemed to grow increasingly concerned as he learned about what was transpiring at the Capitol and was visibly shaken when he heard that someone had been shot there. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a new insight that we haven't heard. We have certainly seen in her testimony about how cavalierly he was watching these events unfold in the dining room, calmly taking this in on the television, while people kept coming in and pleading with him to do something. And, some of the most powerful testimony was that when Meadows was being pushed to get the president to do something, to call it off, there was the response, well, you've heard what he said, essentially words to the effect of, he thinks Pence deserves it. And so being able to get Meadows on the record, we have, this conversation secondhand from others, being able to ask Meadows about that conversation and others will be really useful to prosecutors.
Let me play Cassidy Hutchinson, who was just on with my colleague Ari Melber just a little while ago. This is what she had to say and her initial reaction to Meadows' apparent cooperation.
In my experience, Mark was sort of all over the board in some ways. He would privately admit to me sometimes that we had lost the election, or sometimes he would privately admit to me that Trump had said that we had lost the election. But Mark also was a key player in bringing in characters like Sidney Powell and like Jenna Ellis. In my experience, he would at times acknowledge what I have read in the ABC report.
I mean, the all over the place, sort of status of Mark Meadows even came out in the January 6th hearings where he's sort of catatonic when the violence is happening and says, as you said, he doesn't want to do anything. Trump doesn't want to do anything, and that he thought Pence deserved it. Cassidy Hutchinson also says in her new book that Mark Meadows burned so many papers after the 2020 election that it left his office smoky and even prompted his wife to complain that his suits smelled like a bonfire. That, to me, sounds incredibly damning. Getting an immunity deal when you might have been burning evidence seems odd to me. Do you think that at some point he will be prosecuted either by Georgia or by someone else?
I really can't say. I really don't know whether
he is in Georgia. Sorry,
sort of chameleon-like evade prosecution by cutting deals. That testimony from Cassidy, as the former chair of the Intel Committee, was alarming to me at the time. It's alarming to me today. We were really never able to get to the bottom of what he was destroying. And I would hope that as a part of his cooperation, we get new insights on that. He might, have, important value, for example, in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. He might be able to shed light on how some of those documents got there, his conversations with the president, or warnings that were made to him and the president. But for the sake of national security, I hope that any deal would also require him to be truthful about that. Final, point on that is, would it make sense to have a deal with somebody involved in that kind of conduct really depends on the value of their testimony. And presumably, if Smith gave Meadows immunity, it was either because it would be difficult to prosecute him or because the value of what he was getting was so significant, it outweighed the benefit of bringing him to justice.
Yeah, and of course, I misspoke. Of course, he is already being prosecuted in Georgia, so he is on the hook for that. Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you very much.